Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I assume you have all missed me greatly. We're going to give it just a minute for people to finish filling in the audience. And I think this is everybody that's going to be on the stage, actually. So we're good on that front. So we'll give it just a minute for people to keep filling in. Uh, we joined right at 2 on the dot, so we'll give people a second to catch back up to us. And then we will get started with our second AMA of the day. All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. I do just want to remind everyone that if you were not here for the AMA this morning that we had with David Shin, the head of global adoption from Clayton, that recording is live on our YouTube, and the write up is uh, pinned in the AMA voiceless chat, the AMA questions channel, and the general channel. So if you missed that AMA, definitely check it out. There was a lot of really good stuff. David is super experienced and intelligent, and so it was a real pleasure having that AMA. So make sure you do check that out. Aside from that, we're now going to get started with our normally scheduled AMA. So, as is tradition, the first thing we're going to do is go over to Frisky Fox for some updates.
Thanks, Mullen. So yeah, this is our second AMA of the day. Um, so at this rate, we'll have an AMA every 4 hours for the rest of the year. That'll be great. No, I'm just joking. But it's always really good to have that extra communication there. And I like went and like listened to the AMA and I read their transcript and it was really good. So I do recommend everyone go check that out. We're really excited about working with Clayton. Um, Dreamer is on a plane right now. He is headed to the Singapore event next week, and I'm really excited about that. We'll also be having a few other people there as well. So if you're in the area of Southeast Asia, feel free to pop over and head to the Clayton area, and we'll be there with our own little area. So happy to see everyone there. Speaking of events, we also have a uh, New York City event at SmartCon next week that we'll be participating in. That'll be Magnus and I will be speaking there on the 29th, having a little section about randomness on the blockchain. It's more of a developer focused event, but it's really cool to be there in conjunction with Chainlink and with them having sponsored us a little bit for that. And we may or may not have some exciting announcements there as well. So, really stoked about that event and looking forward to the one in Singapore as well at the same time. I think they're actually on the same day on opposite ends of the world. So, pretty amazing. Let's see, milestones. We turned off questing last week on Serendale, and we saw basically most of the transactions from two chains are now consolidated onto one chain. And we saw our transactions skyrocket, and it was really cool. We hit a lot of really cool milestones, and our chain was able to handle it without any issues. But the trajectory we were heading at was also like, okay, are we going to be able to sustain this amount for like long term, or is it going to have effects on our chain that we don't want? So we kind of analyzed that with Avalabs, and I know like Magnus was pretty involved in that as well with some of the back and forth, looking at disk usage, I/O operations, CPU load, and stuff like that, and like the memory usage. Magnus, do you want to spend a minute and kind of talk about some of that effort that was there?
Yeah, so I can go and jump into that. Yeah, over the past really weeks even, we've been targeting a gas fee increase with the goal of making sure the chain is stable over time. And so this is really kind of like a proactive step we were looking to do, and then we saw some the high volume for the weekend particularly, and so we in consulting with the Ava Labs came to the recommendation that it was best to uh, raise those fees to prevent any kind of like state runaway. And yeah, just a note on kind of like gas fees in particular. It's a balancing act. Things on both sides of the equation. One of those being the stability of the network and health of the validators, and making sure the state tree doesn't get too big and cause a runaway situation. The other side of that is keeping gas fees low in kind of U.S. dollar terms. So, and so as more and more transactions are submitted to the chain, validators have to keep working harder to keep up, and so we really want to steer really clear of any kind of state tree runaway scenario. And so we're pretty much daily consulting with Ava Labs to make sure things are kind of tuned properly for the awesome amount of volume we're seeing lately. And so in terms of gas fees, it really comes down to supply and demand. That we have a finite amount of block space that we can fit on our chain for kind of each 10-second amount per se. And so when demand goes up really quickly, the network will automatically adjust those prices to account for that. You do always have the option of kind of paying the minimum, which is currently set to 1 GUI. And that's kind of the lower bound or which your transactions will get processed. But you may have to sit around in the mempool for a while. So usually what MetaMask recommends is kind of gives you different levels of that you could pay for on top of the base fee to ensure like that they kind of pick you first in that gas auction sense. Most chains have dynamic gas fees. And so a gas auction system is it's pretty common. Ethereum kind of pioneered it. Other chains have tried no gas fees, and they quickly had to kind of pivot and move to the dynamic model. And other chains have tried a static gas fee, so you always pay the same no matter what. But that ended up causing issues as well. And most of those that started with that have shifted over to the Ethereum-based model, which we're also using on DFK chain. So a few things we can tune is how reactive that chain is to those over time, so we could have it ramp up more slowly or more quickly, and in terms of responding to load. And so those are some things we're kind of going to be conservative with as we go forward. We want to steer towards like keeping the chain as stable as possible to make sure everything's available. And so we can also tune a rough target for the amount of gas we want to be spent for 10 seconds, but this is still kind of a part of the equation that gets factors in on chain with the gas fee scaling based off of load. And just to give a comparison of how much volume we're doing on DFK chain right now, we're doing 10 times the transaction volume roughly of C chain. They're at like around like 2 transactions per second. We've seen today anywhere from like 20 up to closer to 30. And so we're doing quite a bit of volume in terms of transactions per second, but we're still several times lower in terms of like the US dollar value of those gas fees. And then another kind of metric to point out is we're nearly 110 million transactions on DFK chain, while the Avalanche C chain has roughly 200 million to date. And with our TPS numbers being at 10x of what they are, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to surpass that volume soon. And then while I'm on the subject of validators, one other note is that some some people in the community have noticed that that we had a validator like drop off the network on Monday, and that's kind of like a naturally occurring phenomenon where the validator has to be restaked, and so that's going to be happening for one of our validators over the next 6 weeks, since one's already occurred, and then they'll be promptly restaked as that happens. And there was an issue with the Subnet Explorer where it didn't automatically reflect that change, but that's since been patched by Ava Labs, so you can always check that to see the latest status of the validators on the network.
Awesome. Yeah, no, so to reiterate there, it's Ava or Avalanche C chain has, I think, 200 million transactions now. We're sitting at 110, doing about 10 times the transactions per second or more. I too would expect us to probably surpass that pretty soon. I know last week I was looking at numbers just anecdotally, and I saw numbers of, I think we got up to like 50, 60, even up to like over 100 transactions per second for a while, which was cool. But also, like just looking at the trajectory we're at and trying to be very proactive, because we've seen how our app has basically broken chains in the past, and trying to make sure that we don't get to that point with ours, because like we want to make sure that we're able to stay up for as many of our players for as long as possible, and making sure that that is able to be sustained forever, basically. So another part of that equation, since you brought up the validators, and yeah, like currently we have 8 validators. They're pretty beefy. They have really good specs. They're able to handle crazy high volumes, and all that. But we also are heading towards a decentralized system where anybody can come in and be a validator. And so to make that basically feasible, we have to ensure that the fees being collected are enough to actually cover the infrastructure costs and things like that as well, to be able to attract more validators to come in and help to secure our chain. So currently, just as a reminder, half of all the joules that are spent on gas are actually being burned, and 25% go to the Quest Fund, and 25% go to the validators. So it's very different from a lot of other like models you see on other blockchains that will actually mint new gas tokens for the validators out of air. Ours isn't doing that. It's actually not inflationary at all. It's actually deflationary. So as more transactions are being placed, there's less and less joule in circulation, especially after last night when we turned off the emissions in the gardens on Serendale. There hasn't been a single joule that has been like minted since then. So there's actually less joules in existence now than there was yesterday, and there will be less joules tomorrow than there are today. And that's in large part because of things like the DFK chain basically burning joules, and then also things like duels and other features that burn joules as well. And I think even just like summoning and the stuff from the gardens also burn joules and crystal as well. So there's a lot of really cool things there to be aware of. But yeah, it's really amazing to see some of those like milestones that we hit, and ensuring that our team is being very proactive to make sure that our network can continue to scale forever is high on our list of priorities. So kudos over there to Magnus and also Avalabs. They've been every day, all day long, basically talking about this or that with our validators and our chain. And I think we've updated our validators like 5-6 times in the last couple weeks, which is a fairly big undertaking as well, because we have to get 4 of us that hold keys to all of the different validators, because there's no single person who holds all of those, and have them all coordinate on like updating those at the same time is no small undertaking either. So kudos to Magnus and Avalabs for all their efforts there. Speaking of the gas fees, it is dynamic now. We had it set as a base fee of 0.04 before we did any changes, and we changed it to 1. For some context, Harmony a while back, they were at 1 at the start of the year, and they raised that, I think, to 50, and then again they raised it again to over 100. So we're still quite a bit smaller than the base fee of Harmony, and having it be dynamic like that ensures that it scales up and down based on the load. I think it's averaging about 11 or so right now. So that's where we're at. Some people in the community have run analyses on questing to find out how much joule equivalent things are earned from each quest and how much it costs to actually run those quests. And they are still very profitable. And we always want to make sure that it stays that way. Magnus did make some little tweaks this morning to the structure for gas to basically I think, lower it a little bit. There's obviously a lot of different variables involved, but he's been sort of like monitoring that to see what impact that has on the validators and on the state tree, memory and IO operations and CPU load and all that. And we'll essentially just be trying to like fine tune that more and more as we go until we reach that sweet spot that is 100% like sustainable, but also just like as low as we can get it to be. So stay tuned for that, and also just a big kudos to all the effort there from our team and from the community for like your patience and understanding on that as well. So that's the gas thing. We did talk about emissions being set. Joule is now deflationary. I'm really excited about that. I've also been hearing a lot of questions about X joules and what the plan is for those, and what we're going to be doing in the future to sort of like replace those. And I'll be talking a little bit about that more here in a bit. But I think first I kind of wanted to give some time for, I think Sunbear had some updates, and Beetle Dude, I'm not sure if you have anything you'd like to say first, and then we'll kind of circle back. And then I guess Bolon, anything about events and the community side as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'll get started. Might as well use my opportunity to speak. So yeah, just as far as the build side goes, as an update, we are working really hard to get these multi-quests starting and completing out. I'm super excited about it. I cannot wait to be using it for my own heroes. So I'm really pushing to get that out. We're getting down to just some last minute refinement and testing for that. So that should be coming soon, TM. So that's really exciting. Next week and the week after, we're working on some more parody items that we're bringing over. Pets is a big one as well that we're trying to get finalized. We've got some of the contracts move over to DFK chain, and we're just working on getting those hooked up and making sure everything looks good, and figuring out how to kind of apply the different pets from Christabel and Sarandale together and make that work. So working on that. We've got Stone Carver as well that's coming down the pipeline. And at that point, we'll be pretty close to having parity completed. So we're getting down to the wire on those things. So yeah, just a couple updates. Probably pretty similar to what I'm normally saying, but we're really getting down to the kind of last items in the barrel to have Crystal Vale caught up with Sarandale. So super exciting, and hopefully we can continue bringing cool new features after that point. So that's the goal. And yeah, that's it for me, I think, for today. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, I'll jump in too. Hey, everybody. Just a lot I'm excited about right now. So if I sound excited, it's because I am. So a few things I just want to mention. After we launched the NPCs in the castle, the Jester and the Archivist last week, we did see an influx of applications on the build site. A lot of content creators, YouTubers, podcasts, stuff like that. People just wanting to bring their content to the people. And so we're really brainstorming as a committee right now, like what's the best way to really feature that content and help this information get out there. So more to come there, but we're really kind of working on that and excited about the possibilities there. A couple folks that I'd like to highlight that we didn't necessarily highlight last week that were added, Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms, just a great group with good tools on their website, good information, and good feeling of community there. Definitely recommend checking them out. Also, Expert, if you're looking for infographics and trying to understand the game better or explain it to your friends or trying to understand, strategies and how to engage with the game, great place to get some guides and information there. Please check that out. And really excited about a new co-marketing partnership with DFK Earn, their P2P swap. This allows you to actually go in and they're launched on DFK chain now, so you can launch with your assets in Crystal Vel into this swap and swap any items within the game with other folks. Great service there. Check it out. I'm excited to have them built on DFK chain. I'm also excited about next week. Dreamer and Pi and Bolon and others, myself, will be over there at Token 2049. We're already setting up lots of meetings with new partners that Clayton's introducing us to, that we can co-market with over there. So just a lot of possibilities starting to open up. It feels like there's kind of a new energy to really co-market and create some things as we see it happening in the game and on our chain. Also just wanted to mention, DFK Arena and then DFK Fight Club. As you can see on the build site, they've applied for the Raffle Master to integrate raffle tickets, the ones that we use in duels, into their games as well. That is progressing, and shortly after we launch Duel Season 1 on DFK chain, you should start to see those folks coming in as well. So that building is happening on DFK chain as well. So there's the highlight of things happening. Just super bullish and excited about our direction right now.
I'd just like to echo some of that sentiment there. I'm really excited about these events because it's like really cool to go and to learn and to see some of the members of our community and all that out there, but also it's a huge opportunity for like networking and for biz dev. And we are really sending our A team over there with Dreamer and Sunbear and Bolon and all these other really awesome people. Poppy and Pieface are going to be there, and also Risen, I believe. Really just the A team to head over there and meet all these cool untapped markets basically over there in Asia with all these potential partners that are already integrated with Clayton that are interested to see if they could integrate with us as well. So I'm super excited about that. And same thing over in New York too. There's a lot of opportunity there for like me and Magnus to be networking with some of the attendees there. There's a lot of really good talent that also attends there. And of course, Chainlink. We've been in talks with them over the past few weeks and are excited to be there with them and being able to see if we can figure out cool ways to work together. So really stoked about all that. Thanks, Sunbear. Oh, and one more thing. Sorry, I had to cough. But the Raffle Master, I'm also very excited. From Duels Season 0, we burned almost 100,000 jewels from the Raffle Master itself, and then the other almost 100,000 jewels were sent to the quest fund off of that too. So it's a real good case study about how these mini games that are using the raffle system can really result in a lot of jewels being burned and also a lot of jewels heading into the quest fund, which then helps everyone here as well to earn more from their playing. So really excited to see other apps out there that are building and are excited to use this raffle system as well, because that's the exact end goal that we had in mind when we created it. So Bolon, I don't know if I should hand it back over to you. I still have a lot to say about XJewels, but I think there was a question about XJewels, so maybe I'll wait for you to ask that from the AMA questions.
Yeah, that'll work if that works for you. I did actually want to add one thing real quick. Actually, two things. Sorry, I lied. One is about Token 2049, like Sunbear and Fox were saying. Really excited for that, but I think it's worth the specific mention. So Clayton is insert highest level of sponsor here of Token 2049, whatever they call it. But Clayton's a really big sponsor of theirs, so they have a really large booth, and it's their booth that we're essentially utilizing a portion of, and that was all done at their request, essentially. So, Clayton wants us to be there. Clayton is providing us the space to use during this event to support us being there. So I just wanted to give that shout out because they've really helped to make that possible, and it's going to be a really big and impactful event that we could not have done without their support on it. The other thing I want to throw out there, since we're giving out shout outs anyway, I planned on doing this at some point, but shout out to Sandwich Punch, who transcribes all of our AMAs, including today where he's transcribing 2 of them. So I just wanted to give him a special shout out because we all appreciate greatly what he does. It makes this information a lot easier to access for those that don't want to, listen to an hour-long recording. So thank you, Sandwich Punch. On that note, we can go into some questions. Let's see. So, as a first question, which we'll go to, let's go to Hubert first. I don't think we've heard him talk yet. Hubert, this one will be for you. So it seems, on Crystal Veil questing, you can you can have up to 5 attempts of the quest done at one time. With heroes approaching 30 stamina, are we planning on upping that so that you could queue more, or so that you could run more than 5 attempts at a time?
Happy to answer that. And sorry, I haven't spoken yet. Here's my voice. Here it is. So yeah, I think that question was about training quests specifically, right?
It
Because
was.
yeah, fishing and foraging, you can do more. There was a reason why we limited it to 5. We were going to tie in some functionality with leaderboards, and I think we're really close to actually implementing that. But then, all this transition stuff has been taking all of our priorities. So once we kind of refigure out what we're doing with leaderboards and everything, and get back to situated to like a normal flow, we'll be looking back at seeing if we're going to implement that or not. And if we don't, then there wouldn't be a reason to increase it so you could do more attempts than 5. But the intent was to limit it to 5 so that we could say like, oh, if you got like 5 wins in a row, then the person with the most 5 wins in a row in a day or whatever could be the one that wins, or other patterns like win loss win loss win, things like that. So that was the intent. That's why we did that, and I think we're still planning on something like that, but it's going to take some time getting leaderboards back up and running, and some of the changes we've been thinking about doing with that. So yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And while we have you, I have another one for you, so we can go ahead and knock that one out. It's essentially around dark summoning and the impact that it would have to current heroes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think with that question, it seems like there's kind of a concern that dark summoning is going to somehow negatively impact hero summoning, or I guess heroes in general. I'm not sure that I see that is going to be the case. I mean, your 2 heroes are being burned for a new hero to be created. While it is true that the dark summoning has some additional benefits that you gain to offset the loss of the 2 heroes, I think it's balanced enough to where it's not going to be like everyone is dark summoning, and also to dark summon you do have to lose those 2 heroes, which does come at a cost of its own as well. So every time we introduce something new into the game, it does cause a rebalancing of the ecosystem, and that's just the nature of this environment that we're in. Every time we add a new thing, it adds new things, and things need to balance out to figure out how, what's the value of it, right? So we're doing our best to make sure it is, it's good. It's going to be appealing to people to do it, but also not that it's like going to completely overshadow summoning, the standard summonings. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you, sir.
I also like that analogy of like rebalancing when we introduce new things. I mean, look at the real world markets. When there's new technologies or new things that come out that hit a market, there will be things that sometimes will shift around. There will be old things that might be made obsolete from like newer things, and that's very normal. That's basically progress. So yeah, I mean, that's very, very healthy, I think, for the ecosystem.
Most definitely. All right. Next question is having a community vote to adding incentivized garden pools for DFK Gold. Probably Fox, but anybody's welcome.
I'll talk to this one a little bit. Yeah, so we've actually talked about this internally a lot as well, and I think we've had this AMA question come up in the past as well. So it's interesting. There is a lot of good arguments to be made towards having a incentivized pool for gold. It's not currently in line with our gardens policy, which was voted on back in February, which outlines sort of like what we would be able to add for gardens for like blue chips and other projects tokens and things like that after having them be vetted and such. That said, I think what I'd like to get to and what we're actually working towards is the ability for holders of our Jewel token that we use for governance. If you hold over a certain amount, then you might have the ability to propose votes even under our system, which I think is very, very healthy as well. When you're looking at a DAO-based ecosystem that's very like decentralized, you need to have ways for sort of like the invested community members and like invested holders of the token to be able to propose votes and things like that. So that could be a separate vote in the future, I think. That would just be kind of maybe outside of the gardens policy entirely and just be sort of a one-off type of thing, but just to see how that would fit in. And I guess I could talk about that a little bit more with the X-Jewel stuff as well when we get to that question. But there are some pain points there that are currently tying our hands with doing that, such as right now, X-Jewels are very, very liquid. So a bad actor could come in and basically buy up a lot of X-Jewels. Then if we had that system in place, they could propose a vote and then vote yes on that and then immediately go and sell all of their like holdings, which is not what we want to incentivize. And actually, we've seen some exploits and some attacks on other projects from having a system like that. So you do have to be careful with things like that. And that's one of the pain points that we're trying to address in our like refactoring of XJewel as well. So I guess that's a long way of saying like that's not necessarily within our current power to do so unilaterally under the Gardens policy that was voted on, but it could be a thing we vote on in the future potentially.
Makes sense. I know there's a lot that ties back into the actual question. I was holding those kind of for last just because there's so much there. If you do want to go into that sooner, we certainly can. I just figured since it's gonna be a little bit to unpack, we would save that till the end.
Yeah, I mean, anytime is fine. I think just there's a lot there to talk about, and we don't have all the answers right now yet either. But we have a lot of the direction we're moving in that we want to share as early as possible. So yeah, I mean, it's up to you. If you feel like it's good now, we can. Otherwise, we could just hit it at the end.
Yeah, we only have a couple questions left aside from that one, so we'll knock those out real quick, and then we can deep dive into that one. Which this one actually is for you as well, about duels, although I think probably some Hubert in there as well. But essentially, it's an idea for giant raffles for like a supersized, maybe like a monthly raffle with a much larger prize attached to it.
Oh yeah. So how we created the system was very, very flexible. So we could have any like number of raffles that lasts any amount of time and have it be under that same system. So is it possible? Yes, it is. And I think it's probably something that makes a lot of sense. I know we've talked in the past about having some raffles for really big valuable items like Gen Zeros and things like that. And I think that would be really fun and cool to do and could potentially do that. And as part of the changes we're making with Duels Season 1, we're going to be changing up some of the frequency of some of the raffles anyways from some of the feedback we received from Season 0. So it's probably a good time to add things like that as well. Plus, there's going to be more mini games out there that will be feeding into the raffle ticket system. So having some larger raffles makes sense in my mind as well. Hubert, any thoughts on that as well?
No, I think you covered all the points. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to do those things as well. And yeah, with all the new, I think what we have two now that are using the new raffle system, or they will be. They're with the third-party apps. I do think that's going to be pretty fun. So I'm looking forward to all.
Yeah, there's 2 confirmed to the community. There's others that are looking at it. So yeah, there'll at least be probably a handful that will be using that for season 1.
Yeah, I'm excited for that as well because it just makes the tickets more available. You know, you got different methods to get them. All right. The next one is probably going to be for pretty much everybody on the stage in some way or another. So we have the timeline for the closing of Sarandale, but as far as the timeline for what's next in Crystal Vale, as far as like duels, level 10 quests, and then also the rewards for top leaderboards that from preseason.
So it's the when question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Duels season 0, we're sort of working on some of the airdrop rewards for those. I'm not sure if that was covered in your question, but that's on there as well. Some of the categories we're looking at for those are pretty cool. We'll be looking at metrics like how many duels were fought, and also highest scores at the end of the season, and even things like win-loss ratio and things like that. So those will be fun, and it's getting close. I still need to finalize the numbers, which I've been trying to pull from the blockchain, and also submit that to the tokenomics committee for their approval before we actually announce those. But they're getting there. Duel season 1, obviously, we changed up a lot of things with it, and it will entail a lot of testing too. So the main things that have changed with Duel season 1 is how we do matchmaking, and I guess I'll share some of the alpha here since everyone's asking about it. But basically, we're introducing a new factor called hero power into the duels, so that you can look at not only the player's score for the matchmaking, but also the combined level of the heroes. So they'll both kind of like factor into that to try to match you up with other teams that are more close to your power level. And in conjunction with that, we're also introducing a new mechanism, which I won't explain in great detail here yet, but basically what it will do is it'll ensure there's a much larger pool to choose from for the matchmaking at like any given time, so that there will be more often the possibility for you to be paired with someone who's very close to your power level. So it's a little bit more fun and more challenging for each player there to make sure that they put forth the heroes that have been optimized and that are best leveled up to be able to beat the other heroes that are perhaps the same like level range, but are just maybe higher quality because of how they've been leveled up and things like that. So really excited to see the impact that has on the changes and on like the matchmaking and on how often you have players that are playing it. Because I know on under the old system there were some players that felt like they were always matched against someone who was way too powerful, or there's others that were up at the higher end that were afraid to play because they would hurt their score more because of the randomness. So it's going to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more strategy, I feel like, and hopefully a lot more fun, and we'll see a lot more players playing it too. And of course, under the old one, it was like by no means a failure. There was like close to 400,000 duel entries. There was 100,000 jewels almost that were burned, 100,000 that went into the quest fund. It was a huge success, and I feel like this next one is going to be set up to be even bigger and better. So I'm really excited about that. As far as when, I can just say that we've been close. We are still close. And there are some tweaks that I am actually making to the system after meeting yesterday with the tokenomics committee, or maybe it was Tuesday. We had a meeting with the tokenomics committee to just kind of talk about it and all the like additional tweaks that we need to make to it. So it's in kind of the final round of development, and then heading back over to alpha testing for that to be ready. So it is getting close. The other things, Profession Quest level 10, I think Hubert might have some updates there, and maybe Beetle as well, but a lot of our bandwidth has been taken up by parity efforts, and also by shutting down Serendale and preparing to migrate Serendale 2.0 and have that launch on Clayton. So that has impacted timelines there, but I'll let them talk about that.
Cool. Yeah, I guess maybe Beetledude, you might want to say more than I can. But yeah, just really what Fox said. We're getting really close to being done with parity on Crystal Vale, and then can focus our attention to moving Serendale to Clayton. So there's a lot of work there, but maybe Beetledude, if you want to say more, I think you could say it better than me.
Yeah, no worries. I kind of already, I mentioned most of it in my original update. We are getting to the end of parity, which is awesome. Then we got to think about migration. I think migration, at least on the front end, we might have a little bit of time to put towards some new features at the same time. So fingers crossed that'll be the case. We're trying to, plan as much as we can. It's one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know until you get there. So we're kind of going to just kind of try to get as much done as we can while we do these things that are necessary, like the migration and parity. So a little bit of a non-answer, but we're definitely we're excited about the new features as much as everyone else. So we're gonna keep trying to push on those as much as we can.
Awesome. Appreciate the updates from everybody. So let's go into the Xtool side. The question that we've referenced a couple times is actually a 4-part question, so we'll kind of go through it, and then we may have some more to add at the end as well. But we'll start with part 1. So it's been mentioned that maybe all Xtool on Crystal Vale will need to be bridged back to Serendale to convert back to Jewel through the jeweler. Is it expected that everyone will need to unpair Jewel Xtool in Crystal Vale and convert it themselves? If so, obviously we'll want to make that very clear, because it could lead to a lot of volatility on the Crystal Vale decks. And with that, is there a way to disable swaps on that pool or on that pair? So we'll start with that one.
Is that all one question? Like, is that like part 1 of the part 4? Because that was like 8 in one.
It is, yes. That was actually part 1 of the 4 parts.
Okay, let me see if I can remember all this. So working backwards, kind of talked about Xtool being changed. Obviously, like we've been talking about that for a while. That's part of why the Xtool to Jewel pool has been receiving like reduced allocations in the emissions for Crystal since the very start. It was always intended to just be more of a bridge period of time where we would very like rapidly start to build out the Crystal Vale decks, so it would have liquidity and pairings with other really good blue chip tokens out there and make it be a very healthy DEX ecosystem. And we are have been slowly moving towards that, and we've been accelerating that since the vote for the new style for the tokenomics and having us move Serendale to Clayton. So part of that is, of course, basically figuring out what the future of Xtool is, and then also sort of like reducing those allocations so that we're able to make room for more blue chips and making our healthy decks. So you will see the Jewel to Xtool allocation continue to fall until it eventually does get like removed. And part of the reason for having the Jewel and Xtool pool in the first place, I just sort of want to backtrack here, is to basically have a synthetic jeweler for Jewel on Crystal Vale. Because on Serendale, we had a regular jeweler for Jewel, where you basically put in Jewel and you get Xtool. But on Crystal Vale, there wasn't really any way to do that and still be able to get Xtool and earn. So we figured having a pool there that allows players to basically take Jewel and swap it straight on Crystal Vale for Xtool and hold that Xtool and be able to earn from the like in-game fee sharing and things like that is a really great solution. And it was. as we put in this new model for Serendale 2.0, Joule is kind of changing a little bit of the utility there, and it's becoming more of a primarily protocol-based token. And then Crystal and the new KPT token will be more of like the in-game power tokens. So they'll both have really great pros to them that are sort of like doing separate things. So part of that is basically launching, excuse me, I'm going to lose my voice, is essentially like launching a jeweler on Crystal Veil itself and having that be a like way for you to basically stake Joule as the gas token, as the protocol token, and get a C Joule is actually what we're calling it. And I think that might be alpha. I know we've kind of mentioned the possibility of calling it that in the past, but we did have a vote on that internally earlier, and we decided to call it C Joule, which loosely stands for Crystal Veil Joule. We will also have a S Joule on Serendale 2.0, which will be the same thing, but over on that realm, on that chain. And it's essentially a way for like users to basically take Joule and stake it and get C Joule, which will then open up just like a ton of extra things that they're able to do with that, including the participation in votes and earning from the protocol fees and things like that, with a like fee sharing, which would be powered by things like summoning and even stuff like from the gardens as well would be feeding into that. So that's it's essentially very equivalent in many ways to the old X Joule in the way that you're able to earn from it. And also in the way that it's used for votes and things. But we're also planning to implement some new things in there that will make it so that some of the pain points we had with the old X Joule are being addressed. Some of those pain points were things like it was hard to do snapshots and like airdrops because smart players could just say, oh, there's a snapshot on this day. I'm going to wait till right before the snapshot. I'm going to go buy a bunch. Then after the snapshot, I'm going to go sell it all. And that led to us having to be very creative with our snapshots and try to be more like surprise and sort of like secretive about them so that it was harder to do that. Sometimes we would even like announce the snapshots after we held them, which is tricky to do. And it also required us to do things where like we would take a snapshot every single day for like a month period and say the average of your holdings is what you would have, which kind of worked, but it was very manual and very hands-on and not very intuitive sometimes. So we're trying to fix that, and also sort of the same sort of problem that we saw where if we had a very big proposal or like a vote that was very important, players could come in and basically buy up a lot of jewels and then have a very heavy vote on that, and then immediately after the vote is done, just head out and sell them again. And that's not really the behavior that we want to incentivize either. Like we want to incentivize having a heavier say and like weight to the voting for those that are invested in our project a bit more long term, and that have basically sort of staked or even sort of like locked up their staking for a period of time. So that's what we're trying to look into. And there's some other really good models that are out there that we've looked at for like inspiration for things there. So we're basically still trying to work out all the math, but what we want to do is something that will address all those pain points and will also still allow you to earn from the protocol off of that as well. And the last point there, which Hubert might be able to speak to more, but we're also creating a system where players will be able to stake C Joule towards certain premium features in game that will unlock certain things in the game for you to do or to have access to, which will be really cool as well. So Hubert, I'm not sure if you want to add any thoughts there first before I go on.
Sure, yeah. So I guess just a little bit of alpha drop on that, or maybe we've talked about this before, but we were talking about as far as like different things that we could implement for benefits. There could be like an experience bonus that you could get for staking a certain amount. There could be access to other premium features that we haven't announced. And just kind of in general having this ability for us to have kind of a tiered approach where by virtue of you holding and staking an amount, you'll gain access to a benefit. In addition to having all the other benefits of it, it's C-Jewel, so you're getting some of the fees, and you are also receiving governance power as well. So I think it's, we're just adding more and more utility to it as we do all of this.
Yeah, so just to reiterate there, it's sort of like having a subscription service that you would pay for, but instead of paying actual Jewel for it, you're just staking it. Like you still own that. And after you're done like using that service, you would actually be able to get that back with interest because it's C-Jewel. You would be earning accrued Jewel from the fees in game for that. So I'm like really excited about that because it's a way for rewarding players for basically holding and staking Jewel, and also making it so that it's more of a stable market and less crazy ups and downs with that as well, because there's less circulating supply, which I guess leads to more of a supply shock, which is cool. So that was one of the questions in that part. There was other questions about what do we do with XJewel, and we will be basically like releasing more information there. But what we've said so far that still holds true is that probably the best option that you could do even right now is if you hold XJewel on C chain or on the DFK chain, you can move that via the bridge to Serendale and then visit the jeweler and change that back into Jewel and then bridge the Jewel back over to our chain. And there's other things that we have sort of like discussed doing internally that might make that easier, like having a pool of jewels available on DFK chain at the jeweler perhaps that would allow players to basically trade in their X jewels for jewels there straight on our chain. But it's kind of tricky to do because the problem is that the ratio is always changing. And it's not changing as much anymore, but it is still changing a little bit. So there's a lot involved there. There's also a lot of like just stuff we have to set up in, as far as like integrating with our interface and all that, that basically cannibalizes time from all of the other features that we're working on. So the choice internally to actually do that hasn't been made yet. There's not a very strong case for that when there's an existing workaround that's not too hard to do either, with like just there with the bridging. So currently that is the main recommended way of doing it. And then obviously after we launch the new jeweler on DFK chain, that will allow you to get C-Jewel, then you can stake that jewel there and start to really harness some of those awesome like new features there as well. So I think that was all the questions in that first part. Were there any that I missed, Bolan?
No, I think you got it all. I think that was the only one that had multiple like subcategories to it. So the second one I think actually kind of is more just around like timeline or time frame of, when we don't need that synthetic jeweler anymore, the Jewel X Jewel pool would be presumably phased out, and if there is a general idea of time frame for that, excuse me.
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely a short-term time frame. We would like that to happen around the same time as the launch of the new jeweler. So essentially, here's this new thing for you to do with your jewels. It's the new sort of like recommended way to participate in the like rewards from the protocol. Take your old X jewel and move it here, and at that point, also setting the allocation for that pool probably down to 0 and then archiving it, or even just having maybe even another step down and then one after that, so it's more of a gradual one. But either way, like you're looking at weeks, not months, in my opinion. So that's kind of the rough timeline there.
Awesome. That seemed too easy. Can I throw something else in there? No, all right. The third part is, so once that's done, XJewel will essentially not have a ratio because it won't exist. So is the plan to start back at 1-to-1 for Crystal Vale and Serendale 2.0?
Yeah, so just to backtrack a little bit, XJewel will still exist. We don't have the power to just nuke it, nor would we want to. Exjule will still be technically able to earn fees and things from the Serendale 1.0 decks, which we cannot turn off either. That's just kind of like the nature of it. It will always be there on Harmony. We won't be really showing it from our interface, and probably there won't be a lot of actual use of it, but it will technically still be receiving fees from any arbitration bots or anything else that's actually being happening there. But the plan for that is to basically say, like, since we can't just do anything to your Exjule, you'll still hold that. You'll still be able to bridge that back to Harmony, even a month or 2 months down the line, and be able to swap that Exjule for Jewel and bridge that back over, and then swap that for C-Jewel. So there's no real like hard cutoff date that you have to be like, make sure you do this before this time, or else you're gonna be SOL. That's actually kind of another thing we talked a lot about internally this week that we haven't shared a lot, that I was hoping to talk about with our strategy for the bridging and for sort of like snapshots in general. But maybe now's a good time. I know we're almost out of time, but just to let people know what we're thinking right now. We would like to keep bridges open as long as possible. We don't want to burn bridges, and that's probably a bad dad joke there, but like we don't want to burn bridges with any chains we're on. And it's also tricky to support players that are maybe they're just like doing something else right now in their lives. They aren't really paying attention, but perhaps they come back in like 2 months and they're like, oh, so this is like the new thing that's currently happening, and they'll still be able to basically access all of their assets and things over on Harmony even after we've launched Serendale 2.0, and basically say, oh, I still have all my assets on Harmony. I can still have my heroes get bridged. I could still have my jewels get bridged and all that as well, and then have a like sort of like a way forward for them to go. And so with that in mind, the snapshots for those types of things wouldn't really be happening, and instead we would be encouraging people just to say, when you're ready, when you come back, here's how to get your assets, which you still control and should always have under your own possession, over onto our other chains, and it's via those bridges. So basically, as long as Synapse still supports those bridges, as long as Harmony is still up and running, you know, like those are things that we can't control, and we will still support them during that time as well. There's obviously some things that we do have to snapshot that don't have bridges. Locked jewels, for example, there will be a snapshot for those. Those will be then airdropped in the form of all those other tokens that we mentioned in the past. Also, another one that currently doesn't have a bridge is land. We've talked a little bit about doing a snapshot for land, but we're kind of leaning internally to maybe even creating our own land bridge once we launch Serendale 2.0, and just saying, if you want to bridge your land through that, you could do so. So don't quote me on that. We might actually end up doing a snapshot for that, but there's stuff involved with snapshots that are hard too. Like, for example, if we snapshotted land, someone could say, oh, it's now snapshotted. I'm going to go try to sell my land to someone else knowing that it's worthless, and basically scam people out of their money, which we don't want. So there's pros and cons to both sides with all that approach. But that's a whole huge tangent. Hopefully that helps to clear up some of our current thinking there. We're kind of hoping to facilitate that by basically putting up an outpost on our interface for Harmony. So if you're on the Harmony Shard 0 chain, you'll see an outpost that will basically show you all of your assets that are still there, including your inventory, your heroes, your jewels, and then also have like access to be able to like unstake your stuff out of the gardens if it's still there, and split your seeds with a druid and all that as well. So, whole tangent. I'm sorry, Bolin. We're over time now. But to circle back to your question there, can you remind me again what it was?
Yeah, no, you're good, because that worked out perfect, because I wanted to circle on the bridges anyway, because I knew we had that information, which, for the record, just for everybody listening, the graphics are not going to be updated immediately. Pi is not quite on a plane because she's still in Discord, but she's getting ready to be on a plane. So the graphic update might be a little bit delayed, but we will shoot out an announcement and all that about the shift to keeping the bridges live. That particular question was for Christabel and Clayton for the new forms of X Jewel, so C Jewel and whatever the other one ends up being called, will those ratios start back at 1-to-1?
That's right. Thank you. So that was why I went off on a tangent on X Jewel not actually going away, and that like ratio will still be there forever. But yeah, for C Jewel and also in the future for S Jewel, those would be starting over at a new ratio. So the intention there is that if you're able to get in like right at the start, you're essentially going to get the best ratios there, and you'll get the most bang for your buck for those jewels, and be able to get hopefully like the most bang for your buck for voting, and for things like those subscriptions as well. So really, it's a great opportunity for those that just like want to get in at the very base like ratio there and get the best rates for those.
Perfect. And then, real quick before we go to part 4, just because we're on the topic of bridges, any update on pets and or atonement crystal?
So I think Hubert, Beetle, and Magnus are going to have more updates there, so I'll defer to them.
Sounds like a Magnus question to me.
Yeah, I'm put this on Magnus.
So we're still working with Synapse for the pet bridge. They have been doing quite a lot of things for us. So appreciate everybody's patience as they kind of work through the backlog of items. They've been a great partner so far, and I know they're very busy, and they've got some new products they're launching as well. So we're working with them to get that out as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Apologies for you becoming the sacrificial lamb there, but thank you nonetheless. And so then the final part is if we are planning changes to the fee sharing that currently feeds X Jewel, with the ratio coming from power token spend in game, but the state token not being the same as the power token.
I can talk a little bit to that one as well. So the current jeweler, how it works is there's actually it's actually called the banker contract, but we sort of like rebranded it to the jeweler contract. But he, or it, I guess, it like receives funds from the DEX in terms of LP tokens, and it will periodically sell those LP tokens for jewel on like the DEX, and basically put that jewel into the jeweler pool. And it'll basically work the same way for the power tokens too. Like there's activities in the game that will be utilizing power tokens, like summoning will use crystals, etc. And so a certain amount of that will be a fee that will be sent to the jeweler, which will then basically swap those for jewels, and put those jewels into the allocation pool there as well. So that's how it will be fed. It's very similar to the old one, like the same activities in game, like hero summoning, hero leveling, and things like that will help to feed that like ratio, plus things from the gardens as well in the same way with the LP tokens. So yeah, that's how that'll work.
Awesome. And then one other question, just for clarity, which I think was actually based on one of my comments earlier, so apologies, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and I don't want to give the wrong answer. Duels in Crystal Vale will use Crystal or Jewel?
It'll use Crystal as the power token. Everything on DFK chain will use those for that. So the Raffles system there will be burning crystals, and it'll also be feeding into some of the other fees there. So yeah, I guess that's sorry. I probably said that wrong earlier when I was saying jewels, because under the old system that was getting burned, but there will be some that will also be supporting jewels as well from that. We're basically making changes to there, but that will be using crystal. We did go back and forth on that a little bit, but that's how it'll also work on Serendale 2.0. It'll use the new power token there for that.
Awesome. And then a portion of those now crystal fees will then burn just like the Jewel did.
Yes, they will become deflationary in a way from all of those things as well.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Awesome. Well, that covers our questions, as well as a lot of updates. Magnus, did you have an update you wanted to add?
Yeah, I missed the atomic crystals piece, so that is definitely accounted for in our list. That will be one of the final items that will enable on the bridge as we work through the parity pieces. But to let everybody know that those are on our radar, and uh, they'll be in the queue once we can get to it. Also regarding stuck heroes, that's one of the things I'm working on today. Since Quest shut off last night, I think there's quite a few heroes that are kind of still in the questing state, so they can't be bridged currently, and it'll take maybe a day or two to run the script to work through those, but that's definitely one of the top priorities today for that.
Awesome. Right. Well, with that, we will open it real quick for any last comments from anybody, and then we can go to Fox to close us out.
I just have a quick comment. I forgot to mention, well, first off, if you didn't see the AMA or hear the AMA this morning, please go listen or read it. David with Clayton is just an amazing partner and just some really great information there. And he spoke a little bit to how much Clayton supports community builders. Now they're always looking for, quality people and everything. One of the events that I'm actually attending next week in Singapore is the blockchain gaming event, Blockchain Gaming 2022. It's being provided by the Asia Blockchain Gaming Alliance, and one of the main organizers is actually Clayton. They're putting together a hackathon gaming demo day on Monday. So just wanted to mention that because they are so involved with community builders and supporting that. And again, go listen to that AMA if you want to get to know them better.
Most definitely. It was a really good AMA. I enjoyed it. All right. Well, nobody else is unmuting, so Fox, take us home.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so there's been a lot of updates, a lot of alpha dropped, I feel like, during this AMA, more than we usually do. But hopefully that helps to answer all the questions that are out there. I know there's a lot that's going on during this time as we're trying to move, and a lot of questions. So hopefully you've also noticed that a lot of us have been more active over in Discord. We always want to make sure that we're communicating as much as we can so that everyone's on the same page. So feel free to ask questions there or on the talk site, and we will get to them. As always, we do really super appreciate everyone in this amazing community. You guys are the best, and it's really energizing every morning to wake up and just think, okay, here's all these people that are counting on us and on the stuff that we're building and are looking forward to it and are excited for it. It's really amazing. So thank you, all of you, for all of your efforts there and all of your support. Really appreciate that. And also a huge kudos to the team for all the hard work they've been doing. There's been so many hours and so much effort and thought put into the things that we're building. Every step that we do, we make sure to have a committee of some sort that will generally talk about them when it comes to tokenomics or the game or stuff like that. And it's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of coordination, but it really pays off, and it helps us to make sure that we always measure twice, cut once, which I always say, but it's very important in this field. There's great energy in our community. There's also great energy in our team, and everyone's working really well together, and I'm really stoked about that. And it feels a lot like how it did last year at about this time, where there's just so many opportunities and so much synergy happening. And I'm really excited to see what's on the horizon for us, for Clayton, Serendale 2.0, and for some of the things we're going to be doing with some of our other partners that will be announced soon as well. So yeah, stoked to be here, feeling really blessed, really excited, and just I guess with that, I'll just wrap us up by saying bullish. Thanks for coming, everyone, and it's really good seeing you.
Bullish.
Bullish. Riders
Bullish.
bad.
Bullish.